Welcome to the deep dive.
Good to be here.
So we're jumping into a really fascinating account you shared with us today.
Yeah, it's centered around a specific spot in Sri Lanka, the Udawela Bridge in Kigali.
The Udawela Bridge. Okay, and this isn't just like a historical record, right? It's more personal.
Exactly. It's a personal story, someone's experience, but it's, woven really tightly with the local folklore there. So it gives this this really unique window into how certain places just become, linked to mysteries, to legends.
How they soak up stories. Got it. So our mission then for this deep dive, we want to really get into the details of this specific account.
Yeah, let's unpack it. Trace the sequence of events that are described.
And then explore the legend that's tied to that bridge specifically.
Right. And maybe, more importantly, sort of think about what this example shows us about why some places hold on to their stories so strongly, across generations.
Makes sense. Where should we start? The main story itself?
I think so. Let's start with the core narrative. It kicks off back in 2006.
Okay.
And our main figure is a guy named Shanka. He's a 28-year-old taxi driver at the time.
Right.
And he was driving back to Kigali, coming from Colombo, late one night.
Okay, late night drive.
Yeah.
Always potential for something interesting there.
Yes, yeah. And just as he was getting near this Udawela Bridge, his car started running low on fuel.
Okay. Predictable problem, unpredictable timing.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
So, necessity strikes. He had to pull over.
And he did that right near the bridge itself, planning to walk for fuel.
Exactly. Right near the bridge. And this is apparently when he first saw something odd.
Okay, here we go.
As he was there, near the bridge, he notices this figure, positioned like right in the middle of it.
A figure? What kind of figure?
The description is pretty specific. It says a woman wearing a white sari.
White sari, okay. Classic imagery in some ways.
Right. And her head was bowed.
Yeah.
But what really stood out, according to the account, was how she seemed to be moving.
Moving how?
Almost like floating. Or maybe like her hands weren't quite touching the stone pathway, as she seemed to be trying to get down towards a lower path. It sounds a bit uncanny.
Definitely sounds uncanny. So seeing someone like that late at night on a bridge, his first thought?
Concern, apparently. Maybe she needed help. That was his initial reaction.
Makes sense. So the account says he started moving towards her to offer help before sorting out his car situation.
Yeah, he intended to help. But this is where the story takes a sharp turn, a really dramatic one.
Okay.
According to this account, as Shanka turned back, maybe just for a second, maybe looking at his car, we don't know exactly, the figure just vanished.
Vanished from the middle of the bridge.
Gone.
Whoa.
And the shock of that, seeing her disappear,
yeah,
it's immediately doubled.
I know.
Because when he looked over to the right side of the bridge, sort of towards the back of his own car,
yeah,
she was there, suddenly standing right by the back window of his taxi, just looking at him.
No way. From the middle of the bridge to right behind his car in an instant.
That's what the account describes, this sudden materialization right next to him. And it was, absolutely terrifying for him.
I can only imagine just the impossibility of it.
Yeah. The account says his fear was so intense he actually lost control of the vehicle for a moment.
Understandable.
He only managed to get it stopped a little further down the road near some kind of fuel tank farm.
Okay, so he gets away from the immediate spot, completely shaken up. What does he do then? Does he tell anyone?
He does. Understandably, really disturbed by this. He later told a close friend, Kanea.
Right, and this is where the personal experience starts to connect with something bigger.
Exactly. This is the pivot point. Kanea hears the description, the white sari, the bridge, the strange appearance, and he recognizes it instantly.
Recognizes it? How?
He links it straight to a well-known local legend. He tells Shanka, that figure you saw, that was probably the spirit of Sanduni.
Sanduni. So there's a name, a story already attached to this place.
Yes. The legend goes that Sanduni was a woman who tragically died right there, on that bridge. This was supposedly back in 2002.
Died how?
The story is she took her own life, apparently after her lover married someone else. So, heartbreak, tragedy, death, all tied directly to this specific spot.
Wow. So Shanka has this terrifying, what seems like a completely random, inexplicable encounter.
Yeah.
And his friend immediately gives it a context, an identity, a history rooted in local folklore.
Precisely. And the account mentions, not surprisingly, that after hearing the story of Sanduni, Shanka became, well, extremely reluctant to go near the Udawela Bridge at night again.
You can absolutely see why. His personal trauma now has this whole narrative wrapped around it, tied to that very location. It makes the place itself feel haunted, I suppose.
It does, and that brings up a really interesting point about how these stories stick around and actually influence how people see a place. Well, it's not just an old wives' tale whispered in the village, This account notes something quite remarkable that happened later. Even after the bridge was modernized, updated by the Road Development Authority, sometime after 2020.
Wait, they modernized the bridge and something still happened?
Yeah, they modernized it, but then they put up a sign.
A sign? What kind of sign? On the bridge itself?
Yes, according to the source material, a sign located right there on the bridge. And it essentially acts as a warning.
A warning? About what?
While, the exact wording might be slightly different depending on translation, the core message is apparently clear. It cautions people traveling on that bridge, specifically between 10:00 p.m. and 4 a.m.
Get out. A warning sign. Put up by the authorities after modernization, referencing specific night hours.
Seems so. That's what the account states.
That's extraordinary, isn't it? I mean, local legends are one thing, ghost stories passed down. But for an official body, after doing upgrades, to put up a physical sign that seems to acknowledge, well, something about those specific night hours at that spot.
It is pretty remarkable. It suggests that whatever is associated with this location, whether it's the legend or maybe other reported incidents or just this persistent local feeling of unease, it was significant enough to warrant a public written caution.
It really elevates the legend, doesn't it? Takes it from folklore into something that might actually influence, official actions or public safety advice.
It absolutely does. It moves it beyond just being a story. And the account emphasizes that even today, if you mention this place to local people, the description of the strange person in the white sari standing in the middle of the bridge, it's readily recognized.
So the story, the figure, they're still very much alive in the local consciousness.
Deeply embedded, it seems.
Yeah.
And they continue to shape how that bridge is perceived, maybe even interacted with, especially at night.
Okay, so let's just recap this deep dive quickly. We started with Shanka's intense, very personal encounter back in 2006 near the Udawela Bridge.
Right. Seeing the figure in white, the shocking disappearance, and then the terrifying reappearance right beside his car.
Then we saw how that personal horror story was immediately placed within the context of a specific, tragic local legend, the story of Sanduni, the woman said to have died there years before.
Yeah, giving his experience a name and a history tied to that exact location.
And then perhaps most surprisingly, we see how this legend isn't just confined to the past or oral tradition.
No, it seems to have persisted strongly enough that it apparently influenced a tangible, modern action, the placement of that cautionary sign on the modernized bridge.
It's a really potent example of how a personal experience gets sort of validated, explained, maybe even amplified by an existing narrative tied to a place.
And how that narrative, in turn, can have real-world effects, or at least perceived real-world effects, significant enough to act on.
This whole account, it really makes you pause, doesn't it? It makes you think about the staying power of these local legends.
Definitely.
How do they manage to not just survive across generations, but actually influence modern perceptions, maybe even official actions relating to a physical place? Is it purely psychological? The power of suggestion?
Or something else. It really highlights that complex dance between, the physical space itself, historical events, or at least stories about historical events,
right,
personal experience, and then the whole communal act of storytelling, of belief. The legend gives meaning to the strange event.
And then maybe strange events reinforce the legend. It becomes a cycle.
Exactly.
So thinking about this deep dive into the Udawela Bridge account, what does it ultimately leave you, the listener, with? You've got this vivid personal testimony from Shanka.
You have the specific local legend of Sanduni that seems to explain it.
And then you even have this cautionary sign that potentially reinforcing the whole reputation of the area, especially at night.
It really pushes you to think about that blurry line, doesn't it? Between folklore, individual perception, and what a community accepts or even acts upon as reality.
Yeah. Is the persistence of stories like Sanduni's spirit at the bridge just a psychological thing? Our minds trying to make sense of the unknown or the scary using the stories we have available?
Or does it point to something else? Something that defies an easy explanation but has enough impact or perceived impact to maybe warrant that official warning sign.
It's definitely something to keep in mind, isn't it? The next time you come across one of those powerful local tales tied so strongly to a specific place, what's really going on there?